Hey guys, it's Biggs. Welcome back. The vivarium's really starting to do really well. We're only into its couple of weeks. It's been running right now. Some of the stuff is starting to take off really well. I'm pretty stoked about it. The humidification system, the fogging system's working really well. I really honestly have no complaints whatsoever. But today, I wanted to talk about one of the specific plants that I got in on one of the orders that was intended for here, but it's actually not really best suited for here. I think when I tell you guys the story about this plant, maybe you'll understand. But we're going to basically put it in that big bell jar, that big humidity jar that we've got, and we're going to put it back in the window and get it really growing, see if we can get it to flower. What are we talking about? I don't know. Stay tuned. Now, back when I did that order with Species Canada, and we brought in a ton of unique plants and stuff like that, I got some house plants that are staged. I like looking for plants or things that are a little bit different, a little bit unique, a little bit out there, but things that I can tell a story to you guys about. And that's one of the ones we have today. Now, originally, as I say, it was intended to go in here. And the reason I don't think I'm going to put it in here is because if I do put it in here, honestly, I think with the growth that some of the vines and the vining type plants are having, I think this plant is honestly just going to be overtaken. It's not a fast growing plant, and it kind of sits in one spot for most of its life and just slowly gets a little bit bigger. What plant are we talking about? Let's get into it. Well, the plant that I'm talking about, guys, is a Chyloschista. It's a very unique plant. Yes, that's it. Biggs, you got taken. Biggs, you got ripped off. No, this is honestly exactly what I expected it to look like, and I was excited to get it. This one is actually called Chyloschista panomensis. Now, this is a pretty cool plant. It comes from like the areas of Myanmar, India, those type areas. It takes really hot day temperatures. It likes high humidity levels. As you can see, it needs high humidity levels, and it should be easy to grow. The nice thing about this plant, though, as with most of the orchids that I like to grow, is this is not a terrestrial orchid whatsoever. So we're going to go ahead and mount this orchid and get it going. Now, before we get into that, though, the problem is there's lots of different orchids that are out there that are often referred to as leafless orchids. This one is, in fact, not a true leafless orchid. The leaves are just modified, and they're called caducus, and they shed them at an early stage of development. And I'm going to show you a macro photo, but it actually has new leaves that are developing right here, right in front of me. They're going to be hard for you guys to see there, but I'll show you a macro photo. This is a small genera of plant. There's only 19 species in this plant. It was first described by Lure back in 1832, and it still holds true today. Okay? The generic name is derived from the Greek words chilios, which refers to lip, and schistos, which is the cleft. And these describe the cleft-type lip structure that is found on the flowers of this plant. This genus is closely allied with Sarcochilus, but is separated by the periodic leaflessness as well as the differentiations in the lip. It's a very unique plant. It belongs in the same tribe as your Vandas and your Ascocentras. So it can take good light, good to medium to high light, high humidity. Now, the reason we're going to mount it on this nice piece of oak that we've got here, and you guys have seen me mount plants before, so I've got the plant and I've got the oak and I've got all my tools here before me, and then we'll lower the camera in a second to do it. But I was worried that if I put it in here, I think it honestly would just get taken over. Some of these vines and the growths of some of these different things, they're just going to overly shadow the plant, and then it's just going to honestly get forgotten because it's not a showy plant until it's in flower. Now, because I'm not going to be placing this one, I'm going to be mounting it as we said. We've got all our tools ready to go. I'm actually going to be placing this one. I have a large bell jar with a lid that sits in my window. And by putting this one in the window, it's often where I put plants that need a bit of staging, a bit of recuperation or something. Plants that just aren't doing well, I enclose them in that bell jar and I put them in the window. It gets almost 90-100% humidity, and they often do very well. It's what I did with the big Nepenthes that's in the vivarium and some of the different bulbophyllums and other orchids and stuff like that as well, and they all thrived in that environment. So I think this one's going to do better there, and we're going to get that new leaf growing right away. You can kind of see that new little leaf there popping up right there. We're going to get that going right away. So to mount this, what I've done is I've actually saturated the plant. I actually soaked it. This is pure, straight, reverse osmosis water, and this is some nice green moss. Okay, so I basically took the plant and I saturated and I let it sit in there for a good 10 minutes itself to hydrate really well. Prior to that, I had it sitting here on this just slightly damp sphagnum moss, had the tag in it, and it was a sealed enclosure. But it's actually sitting under one of my fish tank lights for the past week or so, and it's just time that I can go ahead and get that ready to mount. Now, for mounting, I've got my little nail on the back and stuff like that, so when it does hang on a grid, it'll be able to hang there like that, so it's ready to go. Okay? But then to mount this, I'm just going to take a little bit of the moss, and we're just going to kind of stretch it loosely over here. We don't want too much. This is a plant that likes to have access to a bit of moisture, but on the same point, it does not want the leaves to get waterlogged whatsoever. And we're going to be planting it in an environment that's going to get fairly humid. So that looks about right. It's nice in the middle of the thing. It gives it room for growing both directions. For tying it off, I've used many different things over the years. When I was mounting a bunch of the orchids into the vivarium this past couple of weeks, I was using fishing line, and the problem with the fishing line in some of those areas made it a little bit challenging to work with. So I ended up using some horticultural wire, and that's what we're going to end up using today. It's easy to work with. Some snips. It's kind of like a coiled spring, so as soon as I'm done taking whatever amount off I want off, I go and tie it up, and it's good to go. Okay? Now you don't want to go and really tie this on there super tight, because you definitely don't want to hurt the plant. I want to try and get near the base of the plant as best as I can, but only a little bit. It just needs a little bit of structure to help hold it in place, because once it actually adheres, it'll take off on its own. So it just needs a little bit of structure to help hold it in place. Now I'll go in the back, take my lineman pliers, and I'll just tighten that down a little bit. Don't want to hurt the plant. I don't want to dig into the roots too much. Just want a little bit. I fold it down honestly. I snip off the excess, because we don't want to catch it. Honestly, it's good to go. It doesn't really need anything more than that. This tag has already been punched with a hole, so I'm just going to take a little bit of extra wire. Nothing worse than having an orchid in your collection, especially when you collect a lot of oddities like myself, and you lose the tag. So and honestly, you don't really need anything more than that. It's good to go. It's new growth coming up. The leaf's there. Now I'm going to go get this in the bell jar, and it's good to go. But it's a cool, very unique little species from India, and I'm excited to see what it flowers like. So there it is, placed within the bell jar. You can see the bell jar's got its cap on it, and it sits there. And it's going to get really good light right there. I can also in turn move it up into the window there, but I have that big philodendron there that's kind of taken over the spot where the jar used to be, and it seems to be doing fine. So we're just going to leave it where it is. This is kind of the rehabilitation zone for a lot of plants, a lot of stuff that's being staged. Some of the orchids in the window, everything seems to be doing good. This Kyler stick dye I think is going to do just absolutely awesome. I can't wait to see it flower. So hope you guys enjoyed today. Thanks for watching.